let's just get started here by grabbing some burnt sienna. Again, straight out of the tube. When it comes to the bird itself, I want to think about areas around the bird. So I'm going to have my bird sitting about right here. And I want to look at the corner of this painting and kind of imagine the negative space behind the bird's back. And kind of look for where might that be. And I'm going to go through it with a kind of a nice straight line. Where I think that bird's back might exist. So I want to look at other things that might give me a clue for composition, and so I want to put some of this blurry stick. Okay, let's think about that bird again. So the head, kind of look at it in relation to where I put this figure of the back, the tail kind of coming up. Let's say right about here. And so these sticks that I've added, one up front here, now it's all kind of starting to help me outline the bird. I can kind of relate to what I've got here, knowing that they're somewhat correct to get me an idea of where I want this bird to be. Okay, I'm going to take this makeup sponge and I'm going to try to hone my sketch a little bit. Every time I load that burnt sienna, I'm just wanting enough to make a mark. I don't want to overdo that. So as I'm laying out the area of the beak, I'm paying attention to the red. And I'm looking for the red in, say, the forehead. And trying to focus on the shape that I see. That eye is going to be somewhere in there. Got some red down here. Now I think I'm close to being happy with the body, and I can start thinking about the structure, the composition of the feathers, where those need to go. So again, all these marks, that's fine. Doesn't need to be covered in burnt sienna. So the burnt sienna I laid down initially is not quite dry, it's lifting off. That's okay, just a little bit for warmth. Okay, so I'm just using the same method, using some thinner on the brush just to kind of erase what I've got, reshape that. And I'm going to switch to this 1/2 inch angled flat brush. And again, all my materials and brushes are linked in the description below. I'm going to start with some white, just roughing this on very thin. I want to kind of keep this monotone of the burnt sienna. The burnt sienna is going to mix with the white, and I want to focus on what I see in the background, and I want to get all the way around the bird before I actually get to the bird itself. Kind of give me this dirty orange, something with some warmth to it. And this is going to go on a little thicker, and I want to start to create some of those really bright tones that are kind of found through here. And then just to get started, I do want some snow. So as I have this brush loaded with some of the white, I'm just carefully letting some of that color lighten these little areas. Oh, it's going to be too dark, obviously, so just add more white. And I want to start creating just the indication of some snowflakes falling. More yellow. Okay, I'm going to focus on the wing to get started. I think it's just something easy to get started with. And I'm going to without getting into too much detail, just try to rough out the details within the wing. So you want to get coverage as quick as you can, but you don't want to just block it in with one color. I think it's easier to try and get that pattern of these feathers down. Just an attempt. And I'm going to pull out some of the red. Work on the forehead. When I lay this down, it doesn't need to be very thick. Again, we're not trying to get a finished product. We're just trying to get the appropriate value, the appropriate tone, bit of that color, and just try to get something down. It's probably the most mentally complicated part, mentally difficult part of a painting like this. Okay, now I just want to get any areas I missed covered back up. And this is why keeping it thin is important, because as I go back through it, it's easy for me to layer something else over the top. So I know I'm going to just stick with this mark right here. So I'm going to just get that in there more. And then I'm going to think about what needs to branch off of that. Get something lighter now. We got to start working our way through this at some point. Okay, let's I think I'm going to switch gears. And I'm going to work a little bit more on some of the dark areas down here. So I'm paying attention to the direction of all these feathers, trying to get a pattern that represents that. So I'm making sure that my brush strokes, angles of the fibers on the brush are in the right direction. And very carefully, I'm going to start to use the tip of this brush and I want to start fine-tuning what I see. just add some highlights through here. See where we can fit those legs in. Start working up into the back. Tapping this color on. Now this is where the walnut oil can start to come in handy when you're looking for these tiny little details. So I guess I would argue even that just starting with less oil, even if you're doing the whole thing wet and wet, I would still try to limit the use of things like walnut oil till the end and just see how far you can get without it. And then add some if you need to increase that flow and start to crispen up or sharpen up some of those minute details. Using the back of it, just taking this dark color and tapping it on. Add some red to that just to make it a little more cohesive with the red around it. So this doesn't have to be perfect, precise detail. It just needs to be small. Smaller than what I've been doing. So I'm just trying to reduce the length of my brush strokes and how much of the fibers, the bristles of the brush, are actually contacting with each brush stroke as well. Alright, we're going to take some more white and orange, I think. So just playing with it, grabbing more red, dry off the brush again. just cut that back a bit. So I washed it, dried it, and then I'm going to pull up into it. Try it again. And I'm just kind of pulling the paint off. I'll dip it in the paint thinner again. A little bit of yellow. And brightening up a couple of these feathers. I'm going to grab some black and I'm going to start to fill in this eye. That's probably enough paint for now, so I'm going to dry the brush off. And I'm going to move that paint around until I get the shape that I want. And I'm just circling around. I grab a little bit of white. All right, well, this was a fun painting for me to do, and it was a good exercise. I still think I could take this quite a bit further. Some of the details are not as sharp or clear as I'd like them to be, specifically around the primary feathers in the wing. But it was nonetheless a great opportunity for me to challenge myself and learn something new. I did decide to take a step back from this and come back to it a few hours later. I worked some on reshaping the beak, a little bit on emphasizing some of the oranges and reds around the head and breast area. I wanted to sharpen up a few things, brighten up a few other things, and I also worked and touched on the background a little bit to darken some of the sides and bring more focus to the center of the piece. But overall, I'm quite satisfied with where I left it at. I think once I let this dry, I could probably sneak a few more details in it to really help breathe more life into this piece. But I think spending these extra couple of hours fine-tuning some of these things really helped me get close to the results that I was after. I hope you enjoyed this exercise. Remember, check out my Patreon or my membership down below if you want the full tutorial or my reference photos. And until next time, thanks so much for watching. We'll see you then.